Welcome to our newest episode of Thriving at the Beach, where our primary goal is to get you excited about the future of Myrtle Beach and the surrounding areas. And the way we've been doing that is by giving you an opportunity to meet some of the people that are busy working behind the scenes to drive the kind of success that we desire in this area. And today's podcast is all about the important role that attorneys and the legal counsel play in driving that prosperity. And we're super excited today to have Stewart Miller with us from Burr Forman. I want to take this opportunity to not only welcome you, Stewart, but also thank your company for being a gold investor with Partnership Grand Strand.
Oh, well, thanks for having me, Peggy.
Absolutely. So as we get started, I want to just tell you a little bit about Stewart. He was originally from Spartanburg, South Carolina, but he has lived all over the state of South Carolina. So he has grown to have a great appreciation not only for our state, but also for the Grand Strand area. He is an undergrad from the University of South Carolina and went on to law school in Charleston. He's been practicing as an attorney for over 11 years and has done work both for the county, some real estate work in North Myrtle Beach, and is currently focused on an assortment of things, and he'll tell you more about it. But you name it, Stewart is involved in it as it relates to kind of what's happening here in the local area and around the Grand Strand. What folks may not know about Stewart, which I think is fun to know, is that now that he's in this professional space, he doesn't often talk about the fact that as an undergraduate, he had hair that was down to his shoulders. And he calls this his professional leaf that he has turned as he's moved into his role as an attorney. And it's always a good joke to be able to talk about the fact that we had that kind of look when we were in undergraduate school. So we appreciate that. And he also has an interest in being a proclaimed home chef. I need one of those at my house, that's for sure. So he has participated in a lot of local cooking opportunities, and between his work as an attorney and his time cooking, he tries to enjoy as much of the Grand Strand area, its beaches, and all of the activities that it has to offer in his spare time. So with that, Stewart, I want to thank you for being here today, and would love for you to just really kind of talk to us a little bit about the role that legal counsel, in a very general sense, plays in driving prosperity.
Well, I guess it's so multifaceted in terms of types of attorneys, types of work, and then types of problems that come up. Everyone's got an attorney joke, but I think we are a little wired different because you're picking a profession that you're going into where no one needs you until they have a problem. So you're constantly going to be dealing with problems, and you chose to put your hat in the ring, so to speak. But my practice specifically, I'd say I'm about 50 to 60% transactional. And that could be, business asset purchases or, a lot of real estate work, whether it's raw land or taking over an existing, building with tenants, or you're changing it, you're going to update it, upfit it, that type of stuff. And that's all good and grand. But then you also, that land use question with real estate comes in. What are you zoned for? What's the city or the county? What's the future plan for this area? Which, with what our group does for PGS, we're really invested in downtown, and we're watching that closely. Mm-hmm. And then also you have just general business law and things of like someone's potential liability of what's going to happen. Do you have HR set up? Do you have employment docs? And like, if you're going to bring people on, do you have this stuff covered before you do have a problem? And I don't do much employment law. I have a bunch of law partners at my firm that do. And luckily, with the operation like ours, someone calls me with a problem and it's out of my, comfort zone. I can make a quick call and get you in touch with somebody, which is really the best thing of practicing in a place like Burr Forman. So really it's, from setting up the business at inception, making sure it's set up the right way with your partners, your other members, and equities right, and everyone knows what the game plan is, to, functioning end user, you have customers, what's going to happen with them, where do you get set up, all these sorts of things. And it just varies depending on, what are they planning on doing? And secondly, how sophisticated is the client? So some people, true entrepreneurs, they're the dreamers of us all, really. They have an idea and they're going to go for it, which
Sure.
is awesome. And you have some people that, they've been through the ringer before, they've learned already, and they're real sophisticated and they know, and they're going to tell me exactly, I need you to do A, B, and C. Then you have some people that have a great idea, but may not have the acumen, whatever you want to call it, to say, I need you. And you're really like, that's more than just attorney relationship. That's counseling almost.
Sure.
So it can go either way. And I realize
Counseling and protecting them, right? Making sure that they are covered in the event of an emergency, and the liability piece that you mentioned. I'm curious, at what stage do you typically find folks reaching out to legal counsel? Do you find it all over the board, or is there a particular space in that development cycle that you see more direct interaction?
it is all over the board. We get startup calls all the time, like, form my company, do this. Could be they're signing on for a brick and mortar and they're like, can you look at this lease? Can you do this? We're planning on opening it up. You also have end stage where it's someone that I'm moving on and I'm selling this out to somebody. So it really is. That's part of the fun of the job, is every day can be a little different, and there's no telling what relationship or who's going to call or what they're going to need.
Well, and I love what you said earlier about the fact that, Burr Forman is such a big firm and has so many talented people in it that there's no ego, really. If someone comes to you and you feel like it's better addressed maybe by a more specialized legal counsel, you've got the arsenal to be able to refer them out and get them, as the customer, get them exactly what they need.
Yeah, well, a really cool thing about Burr, and I'm coming up on 2 years there. I've been practicing a long time, but just joined this firm. The really kind of interesting part, I would say, is our office in Myrtle Beach, right down the road on Oak Street. We operate like a Myrtle Beach firm. There's, 5 or 6 attorneys, support staff. We're small here, but the reality is you have a battleship behind you. That's how I say it. There's 300 something of them, and the whole Southeast, we're really regional. But if I need to call Columbia, Charleston, Greenville, or someone else that does exactly what we're dealing with, then you have that in kind of your arsenal, your back pocket, whatever you want to say.
And that's available to anyone that might reach out to you or come in your doors. They're really getting access to all of Burr Forman's capability if needed.
Exactly.
Correct? Okay.
And, our office, the attorneys in there, we're great. And I'm probably the least specialized anyone, because I'm more of like a general practitioner. I do some civil litigation. I do, real estate. I do transactions. I do all sorts of random stuff if I'm comfortable with it. And we'll be very upfront with you. If you want to deal with me, it's like, I can take you this far, but if it actually hits this level, then we're going to have to bring somebody on. And I try to be very clear with that. And frankly, I think most people would want that anyway.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I guess, as a legal counsel with the experience that you have, what are some things that individuals that are maybe just starting a business, what are some things that they need to be thinking about from a legal perspective?
Well, it depends on the type of business. In our modern day, and I know, locally, we're really hoping for kind of a tech resurgence here.
Absolutely.
The innovation district and all that going down. Plus we have, fiber optic cable, transatlantic coming in here, thinking a lot of the big players. We think, Silicon Valley and all them. Cheaper cost of living here than San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
Cheaper land, all that. And then East Coast hub, maybe we can draw them here. Well, what goes with that is so many small businesses are not going to need brick and mortar, but want to be around that, which is a real interesting thing, because they don't have the traditional, like zoning compliance, for instance. People start businesses all the time and don't realize, I'm not allowed to do this right here where I am. Could be a nail salon, could be a restaurant, you name it.
Oh, interesting. So how do they find out that is it too far down the road when they find out, you can't do that?
Well, you go apply for it, and then they check with zoning, because it's all kind of tied in together. So you go to, the zoning administrator, and they look at it and they say, you can't, not here.
So someone could buy or lease or attempt to move forward building something and then find out afterwards is what you're saying?
Well, ideally, no, because if you have good legal counsel, they tell you it needs to be contingent in the contract.
Okay.
And you don't buy this thing until you know your intended use has got to, go. Same with leasing is a great example, because so many of these, especially a startup, how many startups have the money to go drop that kind of money
Absolutely,
on that versus
right.
a lease, set number of years, we're going to try it, we're going to do it. Those, it's usually, there's an underlying land use question, but usually you have to have the landlord's consent. And a lot of times they employ, they won't have competition among tenants, because it's the idea, if I'm going to be in here, I don't want someone coming doing the same thing I do next door, all that sort of stuff. But usually you'd get that use approved by them before you're on the hook.
Interesting. So kind of the I guess, preliminary legwork to get the zoning piece, the permissions, if you will, in place. Are there other things that a new startup business might need to be thinking about from a legal perspective?
Well, I guess what I would call kind of in my trade, I would say that's all your due diligence period. That's it. Usually,
do commercial real estate folks assist in that space, or do they defer to folks like yourself? How does that work?
For sure, especially brokers and stuff like that. Most of them already have some of these answers, and we have some really talented people down here. It's just there's certain things that, is it gray? Is there a question? Does it fit? I mean, we get paid to argue over what the definition of something is. That's kind of part of the job. If you can't perfectly write something ever, even though I'd like to think you can. Ambiguities exist all the time. Does this fit? Is it within there? Who knows? But,
Interesting. Well, and that's really kind of what I really wanted to share, or at least chat about with the folks that are listening, is I think it's easy to kind of overlook the important role that legal counsel plays in all this kind of growth and change that we know is coming and that we've been talking about in this podcast. And I wanted to kind of focus a little bit on something you and I had chatted about earlier, which was with all this kind of, if we just focus, let's say, on downtown, we know that, it's changing. We know that older buildings are getting renovated. We know that maybe there's some new stuff that's actually going to be built in fairly short order. What are the legal components that come into play with all of the change that we are just beginning to see, particularly in the downtown area?
Well, a lot of that is almost local government more than even legal, in my opinion. So comprehensive planning basically got pushed down to local governments and up to start working on this sort of stuff. And the 40-year plan just out, 2040. What are we going to do in the future? So I believe Myrtle Beach did theirs for downtown 2019-ish, 2020 is my belief, which is all that downtown tied in.
Right, their
Same
master
idea.
plan and such. Yeah.
So some of the land uses is like, in the future, this will be that. And if you're going to change something, it needs to comply with where we think that's going to be in the future. And that's true, any municipality, the county has one. It's all the same idea.
So the initial, I guess, roadmap of kind of what the next iteration of downtown is going to look like starts with this plan that you're talking about, that's driven by the city and the county?
It depends, where are we talking about? Yes, it's the idea that they throw together. They get data to see what's population expected to be here, what, the roads that go in here, are these commercial corridors, all these sort of factors go into the planning on the idea, well, this is a good city center, or this is what we want here. And it goes with this future land use map, eventually matches up with where the current use goes. So
from a legal perspective, you need to really understand, and if somebody comes to you, you need to know what that plan is all about. Is that correct?
Well, generally, it doesn't have to be that in depth. So, like for a commercial closing, if I was doing real estate, if I knew the intended use of that property, then we would go get a certificate of zoning compliance. And if you were getting a loan or anything like that, the bank is going to make sure you have that too before they're lending money out.
Okay.
There's so many safeguards that kind of go into it, not just me, but it's just, good practice to make sure those things are locked down.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about this kind of protection that you mentioned earlier. When I think of when I may or may not have needed an attorney, a lot of kind of the thought process that goes into that is I want to make sure that I'm not going to be liable for something, or maybe it's this I don't know what I don't know kind of a thing, which you mentioned turns into a little bit of kind of counsel and coaching at some degree. What are the things that fall in that liability space as a individual or group of people are beginning to start a business? What do they need to be thinking about?
Well, you need to think of the service you're offering. So, you can be sued in contract, tort, all sorts of variations of it. But what are you offering to someone as the end user? And if anything you provided was substandard, or if something went wrong, and that's kind of an amorphous idea. How many things could go wrong? Who knows?
Sure.
But the idea of what's your extension of liability coming off of that, and that's kind of a hard question to answer. But just to give some examples, it's like if you're doing contracting work, it's a pretty clear idea. What if the improvements you did failed? That's a pretty quick boom. What if someone got hurt and like you put on a roof, it blew off and it fell on somebody, it caved in? All these things are kind of simple ideas.
So what would those be? Would those be liability? Is that, I think about insurance, but it's really not. It's a legal liability. So you're protecting folks from potentially getting sued if things should go wrong.
Well, you can't really. This is an old adage I got back when I worked for the county. Arrigo Karate was the county attorney while I was there, and he would say, anyone can get sued. That really isn't the question. $130 in Conway and you can be sued. That's not the question. The question is, are you liable?
All right.
So those are two separate things. You're going to anyone that's in business will tell you you're going to get, if you're in it long enough, you're going to get sued. And that's just an unfortunate thing.
Wow. I guess I didn't realize it was that prominent, that it was happening altogether that often, but I guess that's reality.
I want to say, I'm thinking about the numbers on the public. There's been about 5,000 lawsuits in Court of Common Pleas in Horry County this year.
So when a person needs to get protected and make sure that they aren't liable, what are they working on with you? What do you provide that would protect them in that space?
It's hard to say protect because you're trying to just tie up potential loose ends. I'd say step one is you get a good contract. If you're going to provide any service, especially, or anything like that, you have a contract that identifies what you're going to provide and the scope of what you're doing for them. And it also addresses, you can throw in other stuff, kind of limit your exposure. It may or may not be enforceable, but you should try it. But contracts are a big thing, and you hear about this all the time with whether it's landscaping, handyman, home improvement. They get asked to do a job and they just go do it, and it's like, technically you got a verbal contract right there. It's enforceable. You do the work, you get paid for the work, agreed price. But I would tell you, why wouldn't you just have a basic written agreement ready to go with somebody? And that would be for any business.
So really just be smart. Think about things and anticipate, as you put it, what could go wrong, and talk to legal counsel like yourself to be able to make sure that if that what if actually does happen, you have thought it through and have a way to protect your
and it's really based, like, think about if you're selling goods. So I'm going to sell you a water bottle. The price is the price. You paid it. You get to walk off with the water. That transaction's effectively over. Mm-hmm. That's a real easy thing. So what happens if, that's the end of where this is, unless the product's bad or something like that? Who knows? But especially in this service thing, and let's be real, where we live, a lot of what we have is service-based.
Yep,
whether
absolutely.
It's HRTM type stuff or restaurants, bars. They're selling goods in terms of food, but a lot of that is a service-based industry. I'm a professional service, accountants, doctors, all this stuff. That's technically a service. And if you go into the doctor's office, what's the first thing they're going to have you fill out before you go back and see anybody? It's going to be your basic information. You're agreeing to certain terms or before you see anybody. I mean, obviously ERs and things. If you're unconscious, that's a different story. But
yeah.
just think about
so everybody's got to be go into it with their eyes wide open, right? That we unfortunately have to plan for what the worst possible outcome or scenario could be.
I guess my point in saying that, if you compare yourself to like how a major institution runs, think of the practical reasons, not even the legal reasons, the practical reasons of why they do something that way and how you can incorporate that into your small business or your own operation.
Oh, that's good advice. Yeah, just kind of use that as a guide.
Yeah, there's a reason that they're success. You can model yourself after those. There's a reason that's going on.
Yeah,
it's kind of
well, that's good advice. I love that. So one of the things that I'm curious about, and this is kind of I guess, a segue to talk about you as an individual in terms of at what point did you decide that you wanted to become an attorney? What was the driving force for that, and what was the progression that you went through to get where you are today?
Well, I love the University of South Carolina. I'm a giant Gamecock fan, and my dad went there. Every cousin on my mom's side went there. My sister, in terms of them, is the only one not to. She went to Georgia Tech. So we're a big South Carolina family, but I will just say I got a poli-sci and a history degree, and I had no idea what I was going to do with that. So it was almost,
like many people do, right?
And
That's
tons
honest.
of them. And I loved the education. I felt like it taught me to think critically. I also, in terms of, American constitutionalism and how all our laws fall into place, knowing the history of like American history, and I took a bunch of classes on that, why we've shifted and things went with time to address legitimate problems that we dealt with. Because, we're a great experiment if you think of Western civilization. We came together by consent and said, we're going to do it this way, and let's go.
Yeah, that's true.
You watch how this kind of builds and it goes, it contracts, it expands a lot lately. But where we end up is where we end up because of the history part of it. So that kind of critical thinking of why things happen. That led me to just, I was going to go back for a professional degree, and also the idea that eventually, you're technically kind of no one can make you retire, or the business doesn't die, you don't get fired. I could leave, Burr could ask me to stop practicing with him tomorrow, and I still have my license, and I can still represent people. I'm allowed to do that. That it goes with me. I am technically the business, even though I work as part of the business.
Yep.
So that kind of independence.
Can't ever take that away from you, right?
No, I earned it. I went to school. I passed first shot. Let's go. And no one can take it away from me, except the South Carolina Supreme Court. Technically good, but that'd probably be my fault.
So it was really kind of an evolution from your love for history and this kind of notion of building a sustainable, I own it kind of credential for yourself. But is there, I know we're so grateful here at Partnership Grand Strand for your involvement in what we're doing and your leadership and coaching and helping us think about things that, we may not necessarily cross our minds. I'm interested in kind of why you have taken the steps to get as involved as you are in Partnership Grand Strand, and what your kind of bigger reason might be. Obviously, you bring a lot of talent to the organization from a PGS standpoint. What would your kind of hope and desire be in terms of your contribution to the overall prosperity in this area?
I think, it's going to be the corniest answer, and I apologize in advance to you and all the listeners, but I think it's civic pride. And I know that
that's not corny. I think that's really, we need more of that.
I know, and I agree. We do need more of that. Yep. I think I came down here fresh out of school, clerked for my judge for a year. I've been here over a decade now. My whole professional career is down here. Met my wife here. This is home. And
you want to be proud of home, right?
And I think it's a cool thing that's happening here, and that people are choosing to come here and call it home. And that means some good stuff's going on. But that doesn't mean it can't get better.
Well said. Very well said. So you want to be part of making it better, or as good as it can be, right?
There are certain aspects I love about being here. I golf and I fish, and when I was coming out of school, there's 205, 210 miles of South Carolina coast. I wanted to live on the coast. That was one of the goals. I've always said this about South Carolina. I know we talked about it, and I've been all over the state. South Carolina is one of probably 4 states in the United States that you can be from mountains to beach in 3 to 4 hours. California is one of them. North Carolina, you'd be pushing it, but you may be able to do it. It's just really not very common. We are a cool state. It's super unique. And, Horry, the Grand Strand, we're unlike anybody else. It's a really cool place, and we have some really interesting people with diverse sets of skills, and they're diverse because where they came from, because we've just had this massive population increase, and I think that's a strength. I really do. And as we all more people are going to come, it's going to necessitate more services, more opportunities, more things. And being on the front end of that is, why I'm involved, because I want to see where that's going and, be a part of it.
Well, we so appreciate that. I'm going to remember that phrase of civic pride, because I think that really encapsulates everything we're all trying to do, whether you're, part of our organization is PGS, or whether you're working for the city or the MBDA or the EDC. All of these entities really at the end of the day want to do their part to build a place that everybody's proud of. And I think the way you described it could be a commercial for why folks should come to the Grand Strand and live and work and then play here, to get all the I's dotted and T's crossed. So thank you for that. I want to kind of wrap things up by kind of getting your perspective as a longtime resident here on how you feel about the future. How do you not only feel about it, but what kind of things get you energized about what the future holds for this Grand Strand and Horry County area?
Well, I'll admit firsthand that a resident has a different view than a visitor.
I think that's fair.
And I've been coming here since I was, knee high. Mm-hmm. From Myrtle Beach, Surfside, all the way down Litchfield, Pawleys area. I've been coming here since I was a baby with my family. Living here, you get a totally different perspective. And
I agree.
I've just learned that, traffic admittedly has gotten worse every time I'm here. But you know what? I see them making improvements, and they're trying. It's a, cart before the horse thing. How do you pay for them until the people are here? But it has to get done. Mm-hmm. But you see it. We have interconnectivity going on, and that's really a lot better. That is going to unlock portions of the area that otherwise, used to be unimproved land. It's just sitting now, you have a cut through there. What's going to be a business there in the next 10 years? We have no clue. But the growth from me
you can see it coming.
You can see it coming. It's set up. The infrastructure is catching up to the needs of us for, day-to-day living, but it's also going to support new stuff. And that is neat. And just how much different it is than, say, early 2000, late 90s when I was 10, 10 teenager age to now. It's a lot more advanced. We have totally different things going on now, and that is cool.
And when you think about things that are coming, or things that, you mentioned the infrastructure's in place, is there anything that comes to mind that has really kind of caught your attention, or that you feel unusually psyched about?
I really like the new downtown thing. We went to dinner down there, I guess, a month or so ago, and my wife was just like, basically gave me an opportunity, and I think you talked about this yesterday when we were at town hall. You said, talk about this stuff.
Surely. And
you realize that I know a bunch of stuff from being in these meetings and attending this stuff, and a lot of people have no clue what's going on.
Exactly.
And all you have to do is open your mouth and just go. And like, as we're walking through, I'm like, oh, well, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, that's pretty cool. And I was like, it is.
That's the reason for this kind of podcast. We're trying to tell our story, try to, get folks in up to speed, I guess, as much as possible, because you're right. There's a lot of wonderful conversations that you and I and others have been privy to that the average individual that lives here has no idea is about to break loose, or that is going to have a huge ripple effect that's going to be a positive one for the area.
Well, in selfishness, but I think everyone can agree with this. I think some of these distribution centers that are kind of coming with, I guess FedEx and UPS, and then Amazon got released a little bit.
I know, exciting
yeah,
stuff.
Different kind of thing, a true courier versus technically the merchant, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But all those things coming here are showing that the population need drives that. And I'm kind of excited the idea that I may get same-day shipping off Prime. My sister lives in Atlanta. And
you spend more money?
Yeah, great. Lucky me. But my sister always talks about, well, like, it's 8 in the morning, you realize you need something. And it's like, well, we can just order it on, and it shows up. And it's like, here, that didn't exist. I think we're about to get it.
Yeah, the delivery pathway will be a little more streamlined, right?
Well, I know Walmart has a competitive service now that does the same thing, and you can get same-day delivery. So they've been competing on that. We've been using it, and it's pretty convenient, I will be honest.
Well, awesome. Well, Stewart, thank you so much. And I just want to kind of close things out by saying you have described beautifully the very thing that we're trying to get everybody to understand is what a wonderful place this is to live, and it is about to explode in terms of things that we can feel hopeful for and feel really excited about in the future. So I thank you so much for that.
Well, I appreciate it, and I want to caveat one thing. Sure. I do think the way we have, and this comes back in the very beginning, I was talking about this land use and future planning stuff. I know some people are apprehensive to change, but there will still be pockets to still have your rural and pretty like country, and then you're also city centers. Like that's the point of that type of planning. Mm-hmm. It's just you got to pay attention to it and know, like, if that's what you want, there is a place for you here.
That's a really good point, because I know that having seen the master plan, which for anybody that's listening is actually online and available
it's
for
all
folks
publicly available.
Yeah.
I mean, that's.
But there was a huge, I guess, attention to that type of thing, and Jason Green from the MBDA was with us as well and talked a lot about how important it is in all this growth that we retain a sense of who we are, and that we bring in culture and history and still have those pockets, as you put it, for folks to find what they really are looking for in the midst of the growth. So the growth it's a balanced approach, might be the way to put it. And I think that shows a lot of forward thinking, and should give folks some confidence that it's not willy-nilly, and it's definitely going to be providing something for everybody.
For sure. And I mean, let's be real. We have one major accent, and it's just due east. It's always there.
Well, Stewart, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you'll come back and chat with us again. And thank you so much for not only being here today, but also for the legal counsel and the work that you're doing to keep folks moving forward in terms of the businesses that they're building, or protecting them from any liabilities that they have, and helping us understand the role that legal counsel plays in prosperity, because it is a big one, and it's one that can easily get overlooked unless you take a breath and really think about it. And we're just glad that Burr Forman and people like you are there for us.
Well, thanks, Peggy. And then I also throw in, one legal disclaimer. Nothing I said today was intended as legal advice.
Spoken like a real attorney and legal counsel. We appreciate that.
As soon as we were finishing up, I was like, I don't think I ever said that. That has to be said before I get off this line.
Well, thanks so much, Stewart, and we'll have you back soon.
All right. Appreciate it, Peggy.
Right,
Bye.
take care. Well, I love that Stewart Miller took the time today to help me, and hopefully all of you, better understand the important role that legal counsel plays in all growth plans. What I learned today is that there are legal components of some kind tied to things like land development, business formation, liability protection, and so much more. I think the bottom line that I took away today is it's a good idea to seek legal counsel, regardless of the initiative that you're choosing to pursue. And firms like Burr Forman are easily accessible and able to help us once we reach out to them. Bottom line, I think it's a great idea to seek legal counsel on whatever initiative you should be choosing to pursue. We're super grateful that Stewart has been as involved as he has been in Partnership Grand Strand, that he was able to join us today. And we will look forward to having him back in the near future on our podcast. But till then, keep thriving, and we'll talk soon.